However, as you will see from the Bible study resources that have been prepared for this assembly, the spirit of celebration of the people of God on the way will mark this assembly as clearly as it has marked previous events. So far, I have responded mainly to the first part of the theme proposed for this lecture and have tried to lift up some of the characteristics of this assembly at Busan by looking at the history of previous WCC assemblies. Now I shall turn to the second part of the theme, which suggests to consider the Busan assembly as an occasion for unfolding a new ecumenical vision. As you may be aware, the question of a new vision has been the subject of intensive reflection and discussion in the WCC together with member churches and the main ecumenical partner organizations in the period prior to the Harare Assembly in 1998. In fact, already in 1989, the Central Committee at a meeting in Moscow initiated a process of consultation and reflection under the title A Common Understanding and Vision of the WCC. This fairly involved, complex process came to its conclusion in 1997, when the Central Committee accepted a policy document under the title Towards a Common Understanding and Vision of the WCC. This document is also included in your reader as number 5. It was confirmed by the Harare Assembly as a framework and a joint frame of reference for future work of the WCC. Together with this policy document, a separate text under the title Our Ecumenical Vision was also accepted by the Central Committee and referred to the Harare Assembly for liturgical use in the Jubilee service of recommitment and as a resource for the message of the Assembly. A major part of this vision statement has indeed been included in the message from Harare. What has been the impact of this effort to affirm the ecumenical vision and to clarify the understanding of the WCC and of its role in the wider ecumenical movement? And where are we now, 14 years later, on the eve of the Busan Assembly? Since I have been deeply involved in the respective processes, I could be tempted to enter into a lengthy discussion of the issues involved. However, in the interest of keeping to my time limit, and in order to focus my remarks on the Busan Assembly, rather than on the complicated previous processes of discussion, I refer you for details to 2 further items in your reader. Namely, first, the article by my former colleague, Martin Robra, on the ecumenical movement in the context of world Christianity in the 21st century. That is number 2 in chapter 1. And secondly, to the report on, quote, ecumenism in the 21st century. That is number 53 in chapter 12. These 2 items, if you study them carefully, give you a fairly clear picture of where we stand with regard to a new ecumenical vision prior to the deliberations of the Assembly here at Busan. One important clue to the new ecumenical vision is the concept of pilgrimage. The introductory brochure for the Busan Assembly is entitled Pilgrimage to Busan, an ecumenical journey into world Christianity. And the Central Committee of the WCC is presenting to the Assembly the recommendation that following the Assembly, the ecumenical community engage in a pilgrimage for justice and peace. The pilgrimage is a dynamic image suggesting a way to be traveled together. It recalls the image, the biblical image of the church as a wandering people of God expecting to be guided by God's Spirit into the revelation of God's final shalom, that is the fullness of peace with justice in God's kingdom. And just as an insert, I have participated earlier today in the concluding celebration of a particular experience of pilgrimage to Busan, the so-called peace train, which started in Berlin, where I live since 9 years, on October 9, and arrived in Busan yesterday. A peace train that, so was the hope, would travel from Germany through Poland, Belarus, Russia, through Siberia and Mongolia to China. And eventually, that was the hope, would be able to move beyond the border between China and North Korea, go to Pyongyang, and then from Pyongyang move southward over the demarcation line to Busan. This final part of the peace train between the Chinese and the Korean border unfortunately could not be completed, so the group from the border had to go by ship to the southern part of the Korean peninsula and then travel the final leg by train to Busan. If you have any opportunity to meet with people who were on this peace train experience, I encourage you to hear their witness, because I think it's one of the unique ways of underlining this character of our fellowship as a pilgrimage together, guided by the Holy Spirit, guided by a common calling, a calling for justice and peace, and it has certainly highlighted the profound concern, hope, and prayer of the people in Korea to overcome the division of their country.